Raja?
I think one of the outcomes of this, look, I think though we are next to each other, we hardly travel across the borders. I mean, you talked about the ordinary people.
Yes.
It's even, I think, dismal that the prime ministers and the presidents hardly travel across. They never pick up the phone and talk. So I think one thing Mr. Modi has done by inviting people here, look, we must now make meetings between heads of government a routine affair. Like, you should be able to, Mr. Modi, the next prime minister after him, should just be able to fly into Dhaka for 1 day, have a meal, come back, and keep it open so that we meet each other very often, and not this very complex reciprocity, who has come first, who's gone later. So I think if we break that barrier, that the leaders get to meet not just at SAARC summits, but on a routine occasion, like for example, the Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh could not go to Pakistan even once, while Mr. Vajpayee went twice. Even the rest of the region, he went to Dhaka only twice in 10 years. So we are talking about a diminishing of actual human contact. So my sense is this is a good beginning. We should be able to go more frequently on every possible occasion, both bilaterally, multilaterally, trilaterally. If the leaders get to see each other more often, the bureaucracies will also learn to pick up the phone and talk to their counterparts across the border.
For several years now, Raja and Sheel, Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, the Pakistanis prepared Gah, his village, the college he'd been to, the school he'd been to, everything. He never could have the summon up, the courage. It's not just, he never had the number. He was constantly worried about, in the last, of course, UPA 2, but he never had the courage to go across. Now the game is different because the mandate is different. That's number one. Also, you yourself mentioned, Atal Bihari Vajpayee did not have to look over his shoulder to whether he is going to be scuttled by his right wing or whether the RSS was going to scuttle his initiative on Pakistan. He did, because he was larger than them. And here is a man who has come out of the RSS table, who has transcended it to some extent, and who is now willing to take on a very pragmatic way, the regional stage.
So I would say I think there's some speculation that he might go to Bangladesh fairly early on, because Sheikh Hasina has invited him to make Dhaka his first stop. So I think Mr. Modi, he started well, but he must set an example by visiting all the neighboring countries at the earliest possible opportunities, because there's too much of multilateral calendar. There is Southeast Asia, there is UN, there is BRICS, but I think neighborhood must become a priority. Travel immediately to the neighboring countries just takes a day. It's not like flying to New York or to Brazil.
And it doesn't have to be, Sheel, it doesn't have to be only at the Prime Minister's level. Now he has got a very able lady as his foreign minister, Minister for External Affairs. Now she too can get nimble and go to various places. But again, it begs the question, what might be? Let us be realistic. I mean, there's a reason why it has not moved the way it should. Every regional grouping, whether it be ASEAN, whether it be the European Union or or in Africa, there are internal complications. I mean, Europe is run on Ukraine. Europe can't agree. You see, ASEAN, coming of China, rising of China has brought about greater consolidation within ASEAN. What would that do to SAARC?
No, I think partly you see in the Europeans have worked through. Yeah. I think because one part of the problem was till we all began to globalize, there was no incentive to regionalize. I think once India took the socialist path, and India declared itself socialism in one country, Bhutto's did the same thing there. All our neighbors adopted anti-trade policies, self-reliance, import substitution. So that cut off the historic links. After all, as Ambassador Sharma said, we were a single region till 1947. So the economic approach became a fundamental obstacle to integration. It's only in the 90s when all of us opened towards economic liberalization that there is actually now today a case, a logic, an imperative for regional integration. We made some advance, but I think the more Indian economy succeeds, I think the leadership will have to come from India. Like we complain about China, we have trade deficit with China. But when we come to our neighbors, Pakistan, Bangladesh, everyone has massive trade deficits with us. So I think one of the things that Modi must do is to say, look, we are ready to help address the deficits that exist to our neighboring countries. We'll make our market more accessible to our neighbors, and we will do everything possible to improve imports into India. So I think if it sends one or two signals and then look at connectivity, which again Ambassador Sharma talked about, that doing trans-border road links, if we do some of those, we're going to be hugely successful. And if we don't do it, Chinese influence is already growing in the subcontinent. If for nothing else, in fact, I'll just give you one example. Last week, China has announced the construction of a metro in Lahore. They're doing huge projects in POK. They're doing this big economic corridor. So if we don't integrate your own region, the rest of the world is going to impinge on it in far more dramatic ways than we've seen so far.
Sheel.
We need to. There are instruments at our disposal. There is SAFTA, which is SAARC Free Trade Area,
Yes.
which provides for actually mechanisms to reduce not only tariff barriers but non-tariff barriers. It provides mechanism for harmonization of standards, which come in the way of trade sometimes.
Yes.
Which provides mechanisms for creating more border checkposts and customs harmonization. All that we need to do is move forward in these areas with speed. We have lost too much of time. It can be done. And look at Bangladesh, for instance. Just last 3 years, we reduced tariff with Bangladesh. As a result, just tariff reduction, the trade trebled in 2011 to 14. Now, if you were to facilitate border transits, if you containerize the transport of goods, what happens today? Your container goes to the border, then you have to destuff it, then they examine it, then you have to restuff it on the container on the other side of the border. Look at the madness.
Facilitation.
Yes.
And it is just across the border, where 50 years back,
Yes.
people used to just grow wheat on one side, put it on their back, go across on the other side, sell it. That was hot in all over eastern border.
Right.
Why can't we recover that? It will be good for our people. The thing is that South Asia, when it gets integrated, it will contribute significantly, as Amartya Sen has also said, to reducing poverty. Because Northeast, Odisha, Bengal and Bangladesh, if they are well connected, the market access improves. People walk around and they sell goods, buy goods, so things get better. For instance, Bangladesh, we have sold them intermediate goods for textiles,
Yes.
which they have developed into value-added products, and they have exported it to Europe and America. So it is good for you because you've exported intermediate goods, and it is good for Bangladesh. So there is a win-win. So this win-win has to be translated to all over South Asia. Pakistan is the business community across both borders.